This episode of the In Focus series features Ben White, Peter Sherwood, Tom Gaffercole and Chanachai, the Outliers promotion crew, and part of the team behind Rebellion Muay Thai. Let's bring it back to the Red Scooter with Team Rebellion. Benny, where were you at the first Rebellion Muay Thai and what were you doing?
I was sitting front row with the old crew guys, Wes Don and Chris Quirk, watching very first Rebellion.
Tom?
I wasn't there.
Picking potatoes.
Watching WWE.
Yeah, I came Rebellion 10. So, although I've seen every single one of the Rebellion fights
Don't
multiple
worry,
times.
Tom. Judging by the sign at Red Scooter and the little peak logo, this is probably the one you fought on. It's not the first Rebellion. That's when I came in about 4 years in.
Pete, where were you?
I think I was sitting second row. It was actually, I think, the second show that I'd been to ever.
Mm.
What was your first show?
I went to a Warriors Way that year. Yeah, and then I think I only signed up at Size Gym about a month before or something.
So you got roped into it?
Well, not really, because I was watching. I wasn't helping that show.
He was just a number at that stage.
Yeah.
One of those bums on
I
the
was just
seats.
a seat filler.
And Sai, with this venue, was this how you pictured Rebellion to be at this intimate boutique venue, or did you have bigger plans for the show?
No, just I think the idea of the Rebellion was for it to be more like the first Road to Rebellion, just like a regular Muay Thai series. It was actually, I was planning on making something pretty no frills. But then once it got started and I went into Red Scooter, because I'd actually never been inside there until I asked the guy if I could run a show in the Amen. So when it got set up, and we actually knew there was going to be a ring that would fit in there, it was a surprise. I was 90% sure we weren't going to be able to fit a ring inside.
I think timing is everything, because that was 2011, just happened at the right time. Prior to that, there wasn't really a Muay Thai promotion, other than there was, I think 2010, there was a Muay Thai show done by Superfight. Before that, it was a Muay Thai.
Like Jeb and Karen used to do prosecution. That was quite a regular Muay Thai show. And then Im used to have the Kun Khmer shows, and they were really good. But then there hadn't been anything for a while, so it was all the shows you'd go to, and they'd say the clinches count to 3 and you got to stop it. So, and Warriors Way, it just started. I think it was like 3 Warriors Ways up to that point.
Well, I think the difference was when I saw the first poster for the show, there wasn't many imageries. I was still trying to make a name for myself in the fighting scene. Didn't go very far. But the way you said it was no shin pads, full pure Muay Thai, and that was the selling point for the show. And I felt that was really different. That got everyone's attention.
Yeah, I was thinking that today, because I was thinking if I was in any other state, it probably wouldn't have taken off. It was just the right time, the right place. Like, there was no other big Muay Thai shows in Victoria, like, consistently. I think Warriors Way still was doing some MMA and kickboxing, like, occasionally on it. And I think there was no other Muay Thai shows, and it was like the start of people really using social media to push stuff. So I think it was like being at the right time, at the right place at the right time.
I guess maybe it has to do with it being in December, the last show of the year, gave people something to look forward to for next year as well.
Mm. Yeah.
Now, you had 2 shows here, and then after that, we moved on to the Powerhouse in Port Melbourne. What were some of the challenges moving to this venue, and what was it like?
I think now kind of get the venue, you walk in, I kind of figure it out pretty quickly about the sizes of stuff and where the ring's going to go. Whereas back then I was still getting used to it. And then you can see on that photo, so that's the front row tables. Table 5 was guys from the gym, and table, the one that's to the right of number 6, I don't know what number it is. I think it's a table Darren and Steve Hull bought. who was sponsoring Top Tier at the time, and Sonny Vanathi and the Brunton boys who fought. If you see where those two tables are, I think the boys at the gym that used to have been training for ages, they were kind of politely unhappy about the fact that they were looking at some corner posts, and I'm pretty sure Darren Hull said something about it too. And this venue, to have a show in there, I had to feed everyone in the venue. So everyone who was sitting down got little food packs, and everyone who was standing up got food platters. Wow. So they had a minimum spend on top of everything else. So we had the tables plus feeding all those people. And then that patch in the roof, there was an air conditioning vent thing that stuck in there, and we managed to get that out. That was a really cool venue.
Ben, Pete, were you guys helping out at this stage?
Yeah, like pre-show and everything, I was helping out by then. And I think me and Beck were I think we were sitting on table 5 maybe that night.
I
didn't complain about sitting in the corner though. It definitely wasn't me. So
you actually had time to sit down and watch a show. You weren't standing on your feet for the whole night yet.
Yeah, it was kind of weird earlier on because I'd help out pre-show and after the show, but during the show I actually got to sit down and watch it, and then I don't really know when that changed.
Has it changed?
What's that?
Has it changed?
Tom, were you at this event?
I just stand up now.
Yeah, so like I was saying before, my first show was actually Rebellion 10. So,
what's it like for you to review audio video content for Rebellion and see classic fights like this? Does it almost make you wish you were ringside or backstage?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I wish I was there, but I was obviously busy doing something else. I don't know.
It's funny, we've released a few of the Rebellion 3 fights on YouTube recently, and I don't know if you saw at the start of them, I think Paris had a work experience kit or something that did these little highlight packages, and it actually surprisingly used Damian Marley, which is good, but you can tell the style that it was just, the guy had done an okay job, but it was definitely not the style of the show, not something you would have ever done.
Yeah. But I got my own particular style that everyone else that's unique.
What's your style, Tom? How would you describe it?
Well, the typical style when it comes to fight sports, whatever, would be action, not focusing on particular parts of the show that, behind the scenes or emotion and things like that. And using different types of music and things. So, I do wish I was still there. I remember, because I've reviewed every single fight, obviously, from Rebellion, and so 10 of the shows I missed out. And I remember coming back to say, after cutting up some of those shows and being like, oh my gosh, Rebellion 5 or 6, those shows are amazing. I wish I was there, kind of thing,
Rebellion at the famous FitX venue.
Ooh.
I might ask the helpers first. Benny, Pete, what was it like setting up the show here?
Was that the first?
That's the one you fought on, Benny.
That's the one Ben fought on.
Yeah.
I don't know, Pete, take that. Or I was fighting. I was sitting up.
I think I had to. I don't remember much about setting up this one. I remember the first one. The first FitX one was a bit of a shit show because the Grand Prix was on. The traffic was all congested. There was roads blocked off, and everyone getting to the venue was running late. I think the first couple of fight orders got changed.
I was actually late because I think doors open at 6
You're always late?
No, doors open at 6 p.m. But something told me in the back of my head it was 7 p.m. So I rocked up at 6:30 thinking, okay, I have half an hour to spare. I got to the venue. I saw Sai's stressed face. I'm like, hey, I'm early. And then I didn't realize the show was late, but then I came late as well. It was a very interesting setup. We had some cracker fights there too. I think we went over time just by a little bit. It was awkward seeing people peeking from the expo venue as well.
That was all around just it was such a good fight card, and if you go back and watch it, the fights were so good. It's one of the best shows we've done. But there was so much fuckery around it. It's not funny. Like I got introduced to Tony, who runs Arnold and FitX, and he wanted a fight show, and he goes, "Can you just do a heavyweight MMA show?" And I literally went, "Trust me, I'll do something better." And we went the opposite way, did like a 62 kilo Muay Thai show instead. And 2 weeks out from the show, he called me and he goes, "This is like a really big card. Hey, a lot of people are talking about it." I'm like, "Yeah, it's going to be sick." And it was like the biggest crowd we had at that stage. But there was a rule that we had to be out by 10 or 11 o'clock. So you'll see so many of the fights. I don't think there's any 5-rounders in it. And maybe Mike and Elliot Compton was a fight. All the other fights were 3-2s, bang, 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 bang out. Because we had to be out, or it was going to be this big penalty. I went there in the afternoon at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock or something, and there's no seats, there's no ring, there's nothing. Nina's there skitzing out at the setup people. I came back to the gym, and it was funny. I think Pete and Ben, were you guys in the office? Or, I know, upstairs. And I had to go get money for all the stuff I had to pay that night. I went to the ANZ at the end of the street from the gym. I walked up and said, "I want to withdraw $25,000. And the lady goes, "You can't just throw out $25,000. We don't have that much." I was like, "Listen, it says it's in my account, so it better be here." So they start freaking out. I was going to call the police. They eventually got the money out. I grabbed the notes like that in my hand and just marched down William Street back to the gym, just so angry. I'm like, someone, even if they by accident bumped me, that would have been $25,000 worth of $50 bills just going fucking everywhere.
But that's been your thing. I noticed that recent shows too, after the shows ended, you have to go to the ATM, get some money out. Sometimes you'll be escorted by some mates. Have you had a better way of doing those kind of transactions?
The thing is, nowadays, pretty much everything's bank transferred. There is a few things that, like, if there's a foreign fighter or something out there, you have to give them cash dollars, and we don't generally want to have money sitting at the venue and stuff. So there's a bunch of things you got to pay on the night. And then, yeah, the last couple of shows, since we've started to go almost entirely on FBOS at every point, we have to go do that. But this show was actually funny because some of the heads that were at that venue, I had one of my mates who's like the most non-fighter human being you can, sitting in the stands with a satchel with like $30-something thousand sitting in it. And every time a fight's ending, I'm going and grabbing money from him and just giving it to people. And like, obviously the main event winner had 10 grand, just like envelopes of money. And I think the guy that won it, the guy from
Phoenix Gym.
Yeah. Well, they put him on a plane that night to go back to Thailand, stuffed all the money in his pants and his bags,
Pride
wrote
stuff.
him a note with his belt that says, "My name is blah, 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 Nutsack. My name is Nutsack. I just won this professional thing. This is my belt. This is my winnings. I'm not smuggling money out of the country."
That's
but that show, because it started so late anyway, we ended up, they said, "Fine, you can run over time." But I didn't realize how open it was. So there was 850 payers, and pretty much everyone else who'd come to FitX could see the show, and they were just sneaking their head through the gaps and stuff, which I think for the next FitX Eliminator really played against it for us, because the next one didn't get a big ticket turnout because people kind of knew they could just, but then that one, I think we had 600 banners just like covering the whole place.
This was a once-off at the Moorabbin Town Hall. No, Kingston Town Hall.
I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Benny,
it's Moorabbin Town Hall at City of Kingston, yeah.
There you go. Benny, you had some memories here. Your first fight on Rebellion Muay Thai?
It was. Yes.
What was it like for you? Were you also working that night too, or just strictly in fight mode?
Just fight mode. But yeah, it was. I remember that, like, walking into that venue, because it was obviously different to like Red Scooter and so forth.
It was a
like
smaller ring as well.
high ceiling, and it was just, I don't know, it just had a really unique vibe to it. But yeah, like I mean, obviously in fight mode, so you don't really sort of pay attention. You're sort of in the moment.
Yeah. That's a show that had so much promise, and there was some really good fights, but it ended up being such a disappointment because the main event was booked to be Chanachai versus Toby Smith. And I had it booked at the renovated Powerhouse, which we did 2 shows in, and then we did Road to Rebellion 2 in, which and it was beautiful. And they just renovated it, and they made this deal with me. And I said to them, I'm like, I need this date, and I need this date in November. I keep emailing them leading up to November, calling them. They finally get back to me, and they say, the minimum spend for the venue has gone from $10,000 to $50,000. So if you can guarantee 50 tables, then you can have the venue. So I'm like, well, I can't. And so I had to move this to the 14th of December, which is like, 10 days out from Christmas. Had to find this venue. This venue decided to be the biggest ball breakers in history. That we had so many security guards standing there twiddling their thumbs. I couldn't get the ring I wanted because it was already booked somewhere else.
The shorts too.
Yeah, the shorts showed up. Shorts showed up from Sting Sports, who made really good gloves, but clueless about shorts. That we eventually, my main friend there, who's actually was the brains behind the operation there, him and I got the shorts sorted out for later shows, but this one they basically came out to be boxing shorts. So, and Chanachai, Toby fell apart because Toby got a staph infection 9 days out, and Kim Johnson took the fight. So it was just like left and right. Like, we had some really good fights, but it was just such a fucking show.
You spoke about the heartaches of securing the venue for the show, and you could easily, even now, go to any pub or hotel and use that venue. What are some of the issues people don't know about when you're trying to secure a decent venue for the kind of promotion that you want to bring? And obviously, some town halls back in the day, they stopped doing fight shows because they don't want to have that stigma. But what are some of the issues that you've had to go through?
Look, I think, Tom sort of probably understands this the most now, having been dealt with me 2 years pretty closely. We're trying to find venues that look good, because you look at if you took a similar shot of St Kilda Town Hall to this, like St Kilda Town Hall looks like $1 million. This looks like the back of an RSL club. So it's not something, like, from day one we wanted to make it a show that would look really good on TV, and I don't think this does.
But that's the thing, you're thinking about what looks good on TV and what looks good to a wider audience, whereas other promoters in, say, other states, to them, this is top notch.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we want to get a brand and an experience, the right color shorts, the right color gloves. How much time do we spend picking the song for the fighter intro, all that stuff. So we want it to be an overall experience, but then getting a small ring. The ropes were really loose. I think, Benny, you almost went over the ropes in this fight. I don't like the small rings, I think, push the action, but they don't have that sense of grandeur. I think it's just where the location of this venue was also bad, because it didn't have a lot of good transport to it. It wasn't central like St Kilda. It's got to be somewhere nice, look good, and it helps if the people who run it are absolute knuckleheads.
Fair enough.
And getting the ring into that was horrible as well. Everything was bad with it.
Moving forward to the Malvern Town Hall, this would have to be my favourite venue, because this was where I felt Rebellion found its vibe, found its little niche. And I might get Tom to speak about this. Since you came on board with Rebellion at Rebellion 10, what was it like for you walking around working at this venue?
Well, it was awesome. I loved that show. And like I was saying, this was the first show, so really I didn't have anything to compare it to. So, like, compared to the last venue that you showed, obviously this place is heaps better, but I didn't know that. I just knew this venue. But yeah, I remember like not really knowing what I was going into. At the time I was training, but I was competing in MMA. I had a couple of Thai boxing fights or whatever, but didn't have a favourite. But after this show, Muay Thai was my favourite. Remember I watched Brett McCluskey
Jiu-Jitsu or Muay Thai?
Sorry?
Jiu-Jitsu or Muay Thai? It's pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Muay Thai. Yeah. But yeah, I watched. I remember watching Brett versus John McKenna, and thinking to myself, like, this is the best sport I've ever seen live.
It's still one of my favorite fights.
Oh, it was an incredible fight.
Absolute cracker, that one.
Yeah, really, really good. And then the main event between Tom and Sam was just awesome.
And that was a time during that, 72 kilogram fighters, that division was stacked during that particular year. People were fighting each other like almost every weekend. There were so many rematches. And then that was when you guys were building up Tom, who became a superstar. And it was all about finding the next challenger to take him off his throne. And yes, Tom versus Sam, that was a cracker.
The thing was, Tom had fought a couple of times. He'd fought on the 8-man, obviously, and he had a name. And then Sam kind of just popped up. Like, Roy Boy was the superstar. Sam kind of just came out of nowhere and beat him. That was like a super close fight. And then Sam kind of exploded. So when everyone just went, because we'd gone to Roy's a superstar, and he still is. But then when Sam beat him, everyone was like, holy shit. And then matching him and Tom, man, that venue, I thought people were going to fall off the balcony. It was so loud in that 1 o'clock in the morning. Benny and I were sitting in the neutral corner. I literally thought the Smack supporters were going to jump off the balcony. It was so full. And then in the blue corner on the other side is Sancti and Noi. It was like the sickest show.
Yeah,
such an awesome vibe that night.
There was a very cool event too for the 8-man where you guys did the 8-man Man Wai Kru. Even backstage, it was a really great vibe. Even when you had the bowl event there, it's the change rooms still to this day, my favorite change room. Having that little dividing banner across both change rooms, it was intimate, but also you could sort of sneak peek and see what the other guy was doing at the same time. It was a nice way to get everyone together in one big room.
Yeah. Well, I think it's got the best changing rooms out of all the venues we've had. St. Kilda's still my overall favorite. I really like the Timber Yard. Red Scooter is always going to be sentimental favorite. But as far as changing rooms, I think Malvern and Red Scooter have the best ones.
They're the most functional by far.
Yeah, because you can easily walk from a change room to the main area, or you might have someone standing at the door and they can see the whole fights from where they are, but also look backstage too.
St Kilda sucks for us because once it gets late, there's no light at the back. So to get backstage footage or photos for you, it's annoying.
You should buy a better camera, Tom.
Shots fired.
Back to what I was saying with the 8-man, that was a cool little entrance. What was that music? Was it Seven Nations Army remix? Having everyone being introduced, walking out to the stage, doing the 8-man Wai Kru. And I think you only told me, I only heard about this a few minutes before it happened. I had to rush, get my bearings right to get that shot that I wanted to do. This was the first time that I saw this, and I'm sure it was the first time that many people in the stage saw it too.
I'd seen a 4-man in Thailand, like in one of the island fights or something. And I'd seen the 4 guys doing the Wai Kru. And I think it was when Chanachai fought, I forget who he was, but Chanachai fought 2 guys back to back one night at the stadium. And they Wai Kru'd, all 3 of them did it in the ring. So I always thought it was pretty cool. And I love that none of the guys were wearing gloves and stuff. But I think Benny and Pete deal with this part of telling guys what to do. And you can just tell that most of the fighters they're just happy to seal the ring. if they have to do a Wai Kru, just the two of them, and then being told you're in there with 6 others plus Jeb, plus usually there's 3 cameramen that don't know what day of the week it is, so makes it challenging.
The hired off Gumtree. Yeah.
I did my best, Tom. But Benny and Pete, you guys have to explain this stuff to the guys. And luckily, I mean, these guys were all pretty much Melbourne boys and 1 Kiwi and Sydney and WA. But when you've got an 8-man with 5 Thais and 3 Aussies, and 2 of the 3 Aussies almost don't know what day of the week it is, dude, that must be hard.
Yeah, it's like out the back, it's like Pete and I running to try to gather everybody to be out the back at the same time, ready to have a meeting to go through exactly what they're doing. This is like 3 or 4 fights, like, you know, just at the start of the night. And then we got to give them a warning. And, you know, like fighters, like they're in the moment.
They're in the zone.
You know, they start wandering off, and then you get like, you have some fellow awesome close Melbourne Muay Thai fighters that, you know, tend to always rock up pretty late.
Alexi! Oh!
You
know the movie Good Will Hunting? Where he's standing in front of the board and there's all the diagrams and stuff and he's trying to figure out the mathematical thing. I go in the back and there's always the pieces of paper stuck on the board and Ben's drawn diagrams, all the fighters standing there. And then I go to a ring and John the McCullough's got, so they go, I'm like, Joey, it's the same thing we always do. They're just blue, red. Okay, just one more time. Nuclear science.
Like you're trying to organize that, and then obviously, like if you have like international fighters like the Thais, you got to get someone to translate, and it's usually like a trainer or Andy usually comes and gives us a hand. He always helps us out with that. But like, yeah, just trying to convey the message. You must like walk this way, and yeah. I don't know. I was pretty happy with the way that 8-man Wai Kru
It's always pretty bad too in the middle of winter. When they've got like everybody standing out the back in their shorts, freezing their ass off, and it's just.
I really feel for the Thais when they come over and fight.
Next show, they can all fight in Gore-Tex so they don't get cold.
I really feel for the Thais when they're going to fight in Melbourne during July, August, the coldest month of the year, and then they're freezing. Even though they're wearing trackies and hoodies, you can see them shivering backstage, especially when they have them at the show. Yeah.
The worst one is Blair Smith about the weather. It could be middle of summer here. Don't worry about the Thais. It's Blair.
New state, new venue. What was the process like moving to another state, running the same promotion and running the same style of show that you've always done for the last few years? I might bring this to say.
Oh, Sydney.
Rebellion.
I was going to Sydney. Yeah, it was 2 weeks out. That was a expensive 3 weeks. It was good. It was really nice to do it. There's a lot of things obviously I'd do differently. Probably be nice not to get death threats for the month leading up to it. That was exciting.
I found that really odd because what you were doing, you weren't really stepping on anyone's toes. You were building a brand. You were thinking of the bigger picture. And I get that myself too when I'm working in other states. I get people saying to me, you shouldn't be here. You can't be in the ring. I don't want you here. You're taking away from my turf. But they don't really get what's happening.
The thing is at the time with Sydney, I mean, most of the Sydney shows, I mean, like Andrews puts on a predominantly pro show and the SRG Yokia shows are that. But in Victoria, there's a minimum number of rounds you have to do to have a pro show. In Sydney, they can basically put one pro main event on and put 78 padded fights on and just run it as a show and charge tickets. So this was purely a pro show. Gave all the guys that weren't getting fights, brought fighters from Sydney and Queensland and stuff down. But I think I was kind of going in, like there's so much politics there. And I think maybe the backlash was from some parts towards maybe Andrew. And Andrew and I's like friendship there. And 2 was then towards me of like, and I kept saying, they're like, well, we don't need another promotion. I'm like, but you've had the Chinese KLF, KLM, MLK show. What's the difference? And they just couldn't answer it. And then it was really bizarre because like there was 2 or 3 guys that were like straight out threatening me, emailing threats, and then I'd keep trying to call them and they wouldn't answer the phone, and they'd be talking shit on Facebook, and then I think like Vukovic ended up just sorting it out. But then I had other people like chiming in on the forum and then like privately messaging me trying to get their fighters on. I was like, I don't understand the question. But then so many of the other gyms and stuff were like great, like everybody else. I was getting so many random messages from fighters I didn't know going, thank you so much for doing this. But then I wasn't particularly overall happy about the look of the show. But there were some really good fights.
We weren't happy because there were people saying to us, oh, this is great seeing Rebellion like this. I felt you should really go to Melbourne and see what's like at Full Force with the whole team on board. Pete, you were here at this event. What was it like for you working here?
Yeah, it was difficult working here because I flew up on the Sunday morning for that show. It worked out quite well because I was working in Sydney the next day. So flew up Sunday morning. I think I had like the 7 a.m. flight. Got to the venue by like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and it wasn't going well from the beginning.
Show or you?
There was a lot of pre-show antics that were not working as they should be, I guess. I mean, there was like the Andy show in the daytime, which, everything was set up and not running as probably quick as what I would like to have all the fights in and out by. And then I think it was like, say, like the first or second fight of the Rebellion show that night got cancelled.
He blew out his knee. So we had Josh Stoffels up there to fight
Trent.
That was an MMA fighter out of Australian top team.
Trent something.
Trent Brenham, yeah. So he blew his knee out. Do you want a list of everything that went wrong? Everything went wrong. None of the Sydney people actually realize when you say you have to be on time at the weigh-ins, they should be on time at the weigh-ins. They brought back random tickets, like 2 front row tickets here, 1 ticket there. The lighting guys shouldn't be allowed to.
The lighting guys are bad.
Oh man!
Did you meet the lighting guy?
Yeah, he was threatening Paris or something, and then I went and tried to calm him down. The bar people we hired, it got to 10 minutes before door opening time. I called them up like, you guys got to come and set this up. They're like, oh, we misunderstood. We didn't realize we had to be set up by 6 o'clock. I'm like, well, there's going to be people here. The catering guy showed up and I'm like, who's doing the waitering? They're like, I don't know. We just cooked the food. I'm like, well, the food's going to get from. I yell and stuff, but I don't actually ever threaten people. I ended up like threatening 3 people pretty soon. I said to the catering guy, I'm like, you're going to find a way to get that food over there. It's going to get from here to there somehow. It's not going to be me.
That was a good week. That was a good weekend.
So bad. The lining was so bad.
You were crippled as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was on my old meat diet for 3 weeks leading up to that.
Doing a carnivore diet before it was cool.
I'm ahead of my time, Will. Way ahead of my time.
I remember at the end you were all cramping up, and I went and got you some Gatorade or something because you were pretty messed up by the end of the show. So.
And you didn't drag me on the floor, did you? You went and got me banana.
I did. We dragged you on the floor. That was fun.
There were some really good fights on that though.
Yeah,
there's definitely like such good fights on that one. One of my favorites from that is still Nathan Robson and Corey Smith. That's
really good.
And Cam and Gary was a sick fight.
Yes.
It was.
Oh, I was just going to say that was my first because Willie was there. So while he was waiting to walk out, I said hello and met him for the first time. And then he said, because I was interested in going to Thailand, he said, "Oh, you should come over to Chanachai," and that was my connection with that. So
that's how you make connections, man.
That was hard because like Willie just kind of came down to fight Ching, and I couldn't gauge the level of the 2 guys, and he came out with a fight money and if you win bonus thing. We wanted to make sure he kind of went for it, and he was way over his head, and I think we ended up giving his fight bonus and stuff anyway. But he was such a good dude. But like this show, when I started doing this show, the plan was to try to like do that partnering with different promoters in different states and do Rebellion in every state. And then it was just so funny that it was just like one and done. I'm like, unless I can take the ring that I want and everything that I want, all the people from the gym that help out, I'm not doing this. Because like Andy's guys were great. They all helped out and stuff. But it was even funny, the poor kid that was letting the ring card girls in and out got to about the fifth fight. I'm like, are you taking the piss? The bell rings, stand up, hold the rope down, give the card to the girl. I was like, sorry, man, I'm just a bit nervous. I'm like, what are you going to do?
It was a great
can do this job.
Like you said, Pete, one of the great fights was Corey versus Nathan Robson. And I kind of feel like this fight was very similar to when Chuck Liddell went over to Pride and took out, was it Rampage?
He fought Overeem.
Yeah, Overeem. It was like having one of the UFC boys going to a foreign land and getting a win. This was how I felt it was like for Corey, a Melbourne boy on our promotion, going to New South Wales and fighting their local boy. And that was a great main event from start to finish.
Like, Nathan was a guy that I wanted to get out here for a while. It's kind of like I think he fights K1 and Muay Thai and boxing and everything. So that was a little bit of a, what's his style going to be like? But I think he was kind of considered probably one of the top guys in New South Wales. And Corey was like the guy that we could see had the most potential coming through, and we're going to like push him. And it was like, oh, we'll make him the main event. And he was so injured for this fight. Like, I don't know how the hell he fought. I don't think he could kick off one leg, but it was kind of like, yeah, we brought up one of our guys, like a Rebellion guy up to Sydney.
What's everyone's memories at this venue? Timber Yard in Port Melbourne.
In this ring or just the venue in general?
The whole thing. Benny, I'll pass it to you.
Look, everything in terms of the setup and the way the show was looking, like, running at the start of the day was looking promising. And then, unfortunately, black canvas under a hot sun all day, tends to get pretty warm. And unfortunately, a couple of fighters ended up getting their feet burnt, and that kind of just, I think we've all got like our roles that we play at Rebellion, and we know where we're supposed to be at. But when something like that happens, shit just hits the fan. You just don't know what to do. Like, it basically halted the entire show, and then guys scrambling around trying to figure out what the hell to do, and like, we're all looking at each other like, well, what's next? Like, fortunately enough, we had the indoor section set up, but it was chaotic. But it was, as I said, like, prior to the show starting, everything just looked amazing. Like, it was such a promising start to the day. The weather was beautiful. You could smell the burgers from the Ziggy's guys.
Yeah.
Like, it just everything was just looked awesome. It just was just one of those unfortunate things that you can be prepared, but you just unless you actually think about it, like, it just
But it goes to the strength. It goes to the strength and fast thinking of the team to be able to pivot from a situation like that in about just over half an hour, moving everyone into the main ring and just having the show start as normal.
The funny thing was, like, being like, maybe Queenslanders and WA people won't relate to this, but being in Melbourne, being too hot and too sunny is not the thing you're worried about. So the whole backup idea was that, well, we're going to do the nighttime show inside anyway, but if more than likely it starts raining, as it's going to do in Melbourne, and the rain's going to be sideways, we've got an indoor show. The idea that it's going to be 42 degrees, like, it's leading up, and the day before when we're setting up, this is on the day before, like, we got the canopies and stuff in, or maybe it's that morning. I was trying to get a canopy for over the ring because I contacted the Combat Sports Board and said, do you guys have any issues with me doing an outdoor show? And they're like, no, it's fine, blah, blah, blah. The day of the weigh-in, one of the lovely people there sends me a thing going, if you don't have this, this, and this, we're not going to let you run this show. And I'm like, I emailed you 2 weeks ahead of time. You asked me for these things. So then we were trying to get a canopy for over the ring that would cover the officials desk. And we must have called 50 different places. And the closest thing that we could get would have, so see where the ring divider ropes are? We would have had a post at every section really close to the ring. And then
like sussing out Bunnings and everything, trying to find like any option that we could, because
well, we thought about, like, Vukovic's idea was to run rope from one side of the building to the other side and put the canvas over that. But like, how good was the vibe? And I mean, if we could get a day where we knew it was going to be 28 degrees, even the nighttime when the show was inside and we're coming outside during the night, how sick was it?
So good.
It was like it was honestly like a festival. It was
that was a vibe.
It was so good. Yeah.
Nice festival
It was
vibe.
so good.
It was called Sun is Shining.
And it really was.
I think Rebellion at this stage has found its home at the St Kilda City Town Hall. How does this town hall compare to the very first venue that you guys were working at, Red Scooter? And it's so close to the gym.
It's bigger.
Well done, Pete.
But it's cool because, like, Si, knowing your story, how hard you had to try to get this venue after all these years, you finally.
This was the first venue I tried to get. Before Rebellion 1, I tried to get St Kilda. They said no. 4 years later, I tried again. Got so far in, and then they said no again. And then the last time round, I had recommendation letters from Red Scooter and the National Theatre in St Kilda when we'd done a BOA. And they finally said, yeah, and now they love it. Well, they still act jerky sometimes, but they generally love us. Yeah, it's a nice venue.
Very nice venue.
I think it's the most spectacular one overall with the size and grandeur. Like, if you walk up to it, it's a beautiful old building. The inside, the walls, everything. It's like when it's lit well inside, it's spectacular. It's got a couple of limitations, obviously, with the changing rooms. And if we could have it maybe 5 meters wider, we just want a big square block.
Yeah.
It's been home to many iconic fights on the Rebellion card, like the last Rebellion 8-man with Singh and Summerpet, and Tom's mate Paddy getting in the way at the winner shot, which happened at some shows. Perfect. This was another late night. Might ask the workers, Benny and Pete, how do you guys keep going after midnight towards 1 a.m., 2 a.m.?
It's generally out of fear. Sai instills the fear of God into all of us, like from the very beginning of when we ever know that the show is going to start, from weighing day to, we all have like sleepless nights leading up to shows, obviously, because we're all terrified that we're going to fuck something up, and we generally do, but oh, you're right here. Oh, sorry, Sai. I didn't realize you were listening.
Last 6 weeks of your life, motherfucker.
I guess the hardest thing, like especially for me now, is I live so far away from the venues. At 3 a.m. driving home from a venue, it's hard to stay awake, especially when you've been there since like 7 a.m.
And people don't realize that you've been
your
there.
5-kilometer range must be real interesting.
People don't realize that setting up a show like this, you're there from 6 a.m., 7 a.m. doing all the laborious work, like setting up chairs, tables, labels, and
yeah, I guess we were all like there from the night before. I mean, the process as we're doing it it seems to get generally like a bit easier every single time.
You're refining it each time.
Yeah, we're refining how we do it. Like the weigh-in nights used to be super stressful because have like 50 odd fighters, depending on the show. You had a heap of fighters, and then trying to get everybody's details and manage the cash flow and stuff like that. And then obviously stuff starts to change, but we've got weigh-ins down pat. But it's still by the time like we finish up the weigh-ins and then head back to size and work on the final details to get ready for the next day. Like by the end of the actual shows, we're generally like running on like literal fumes. Like we've been surviving on nothing but coffee for like, 48 hours.
Yeah.
Some whatever food we can smash in between, when we can actually like get stuff done. Like it is a chaotic couple of days. And then, we always talk about having that like post rebellion, like come down, you just, doesn't matter how well this, like, how smooth the show runs or whatever, like for a few days after the show's finished, we're all just absolutely cooked. And there's, Tom is still punching stuff out, like literally for days straight after. Like, I don't know when that guy actually sleeps, if he does.
I think this was when I find the role of doing the tail of the tape for the walkouts, and especially with 8-mans, you never know what's going to happen. So it was stressful making all the possibilities of the matchups in case certain fighter, like fighter A fights fighter C or B or D. With Benny in the change room, did you have to think on your feet a lot because you never know what was happening with the fights because someone could get injured? You have to think about the appropriate shorts for each fighters.
No, like that sort of stuff. When it comes like specifically for the 8-man, like we already had that sort of planned out. Like we'll have extra gloves and the extra shorts if they had to change and stuff like that. That's not really an issue. It's the process. As I said, the process generally is pretty easy, but it's when you have a lot of fights on a day. Like the start of the show is probably the most stressful. Like. I've caught myself like yelling at the back, like, hurry the hell up. Like, you just can't help it because like, some fighters, like, they might be the first or second, especially on the root show, like, they take their sweet time or like, their trainers rock up late or, to wrap their hands. It's like, well, every time we have to like wait for somebody to go out,
you're delaying the whole process.
It's like, the way I look at it is if a fight starts a minute late, that's like 10 minutes added to the extra end of the show. So for every minute like that we delay just because somebody's taking the time to get ready, like it puts the show out. And like the last show, we didn't finish till well after midnight, and it's crazy. Like, and that's just trying to punch one fight after another. So like, at the start of the night, it's like definitely as the fights progress, we want to make sure that like everybody's gloved up at least 3 fights in advance. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
Between like Pete and myself, and then whoever the other gym guys that help us out the back there. Making sure that they're running in between the change rooms and making sure that we give the trainer and the fighter like enough heads up as we can, so that if in the event somebody does get knocked out or the fight gets stopped early, that they're not still getting ready by that time. They're like boom, ready to actually go out. So yeah, but by the usually by like say the 5th or 6th fight, things sort of start to go on like a bit of an autopilot. Most of the fighters know, all right, cool, I'm up in 3 fights, I'm up in 4 fights time. You get the few occasional people like, hey, how many fights till I'm out? But no, most of the people like pretty on to it by that stage.
Toby Smith versus, can someone help me out here? I forgot his name. Chanachai. This was one of the last Road to Rebellions. I think it got to a stage where a Road to Rebellion became like a rebellion itself. I mean, this fight night was stacked. What made you want to put a strong main event like this on the Road to Rebellion side?
Well, like partly I'd had Toby pull out so many times. If he said he'd fight in my backyard, I probably would have just matched him to fight there and just got it over and done with. But I don't know, the fights came up. Like, wanted to have Toby on, obviously. Then Sam Bark fought Jamie Stamp because I wanted Sam on. I've been trying to put Roy and Curtis Stady on together for ages. So all those fights just kept falling. I just struggled to say no to fights, or if there's a fight there. And part of it, I think, it's just became a running joke, and I was just kind of running with it. It was a sick card. You can see Michael Vukovic sitting next to Dip there, and he came in. It's one of the only shows he's actually sat there and watched the whole thing. And he ended up, after I think that Josh Tana Alexis Saraposa's fight, he said, "Well, that was amazing, great fights," and then they just kept coming, and he's like, "What the hell's this?" And I think Hammer was commentating the last bunch of the fights after Rivers' fight, and he goes, "That was just too many good fights for a tiny venue." I still to this day don't know how that show didn't lose like thousands and thousands of dollars, because it's such a small venue.
Yeah, that was nuts.
And this was one of the proper first royal screw arounds with getting visas, because Chanachai was supposed to be here on the Wednesday. I think he ended up getting here Friday at 1:00. So it was real shit, like, for him, because like it wasn't. It's obviously not a not a walk in the park fight to take with Toby, and he came in, and like, I think after one round he kind of knew he was done. I think he kind of just sat down in the second round.
They used to be old like training partners as well, because Toby used to train like at Kaewsamrit. So I think it was ballsy for him to come over here and take that fight as well.
I think what he said to Ton and Jump, I think he felt like when they used to train together years before, he kind of like still in the clinch had it okay with Toby. And in the second round, as soon as they went in, and he just went, "Oh, fuck, this isn't going to work." I think that he had his glove on his head, and the elbow just hit him in the glove, and he just went down. But I think he just knew. He was like, "All right, well, let me try this." And it was like, that's not going to work. And it was funny because I remember Dr. Barnes was like, "Now, tomorrow he might have to go to the hospital." And I'm like, "I don't think anything's broken." And he's like, "But just keep an eye on him." I'm like, "I will." But we took him to Nando's the next day. He was fine.
Oh, everyone's happy then. Yeah. I think this was the second fight on the first Roots show.
How does this man get airtime?
Next photo.
Did the first Roots play out to how you expected it to play out in your head?
Yeah, it was exactly what I wanted. Because remember we did that Roots poster about 18 months before, yeah? And the idea of that Roots show was kind of like an amateur cut and was going to be... And I spoke into a few gyms, and I spoke to like Stuart Grant at Westside and stuff, and we were just going to do gym shows. But then once we stopped doing Road to Rebellion, the Roots idea was like sitting back there. So I think I reckon mostly Roots has turned out to be exactly as planned.
And it's amazing to see how Roots went from that first show to where it is now, like even better than the first Rebellion.
It kind of doesn't feel right not doing Roots before Rebellion now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it makes it the day doubly as stressful.
Oh,
a little bit.
But seriously,
it's just like the
major stress gets out of the way for Roots, so you're not having to be as stressed for Rebellion because you know the venue's running, blah 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 blah. And I think it just kind of lets you just get the stress out of the way. But sometimes you kind of go, "Geez, there's a lot of fights."
Yeah. Not just that too, but like
the vibe Roots sets for the day is just, I don't know. It's definitely it's enjoyable. You know.
It's interesting he's actually staying around all day as well, from the day show to the night show. I look around, that person's been there for like 6 hours.
Can I ask about that photo just for one sec? Is that the head kick?
That's that fight, yeah. That's the fight.
So this is the first one, because I think after the first one, so number 1 and number 2 had the Boone shorts, and then I think from number 3 we went on the FitX shows, and I don't think he fought on the second one.
Yeah,
it was back to working with the ring girls.
Because the funny thing about the head kick one that I remember, and I've heard Will talk about how as he's got better at his craft, he started to listen to the corners to know what was coming or whatever. And so with this one in particular, they go back after the first round or second round, I think it was the first round, and Sai's going to Manny, stop trying to kick him in the head. No more head kick. No more head kick. I'm listening to the corner. Okay, he's not going to throw a head kick. I go to get a shot of Sai yelling at him or something, and then bang, he knocks him out with the head kick, and I completely missed it. So,
and now that you know Manny, you know that works because he does the opposite. Like Jahan and I are training all the time because we'd be doing like checking drills and stuff, and I'd be kicking some 5'2", 51 kilo girl in the head, and we'd be like, Manny, just calm down. And that fight, he was skitzing out so much. He threw a few high kicks and I think fell on his ass. And that's why we're just like, what are you doing? Just kick him into like, we were like all the time at the gym, we were like, why do you go for either head kick or low kick? Just kick him in the body. And yeah, get out and then just like.
You're worried about kicking people's elbows.
Anyway.
Next photo.
With the Jordan cohort, I just want to bring up that it's a really cool addition and really sentimental addition that you guys bring to every show. And I feel like every person who's awarded this award at the end of the fight night, I think they come home with something special, not just a win or a loss, but being recognized with this award as well. And I think it's something really cool and thoughtful that you guys did.
Yeah, look, he was a pretty special guy, and we only had him on twice, but I think when he died, I almost thought about like just stopping promoting because I think during the week I've been chatting to him on Facebook, hanging shit on him. And then I was on the flight I got off the flight to Bangkok to go and meet Prem and Timo at FitX. And I got off the plane, and as soon as I turned my phone on, the first message from him was Nugget, and he said, hey, so what happened to that Jordan kid? Did he die? And then there was a few other messages, and then there was a message from Peter Kent saying, call me when you get a chance, mate, I got to tell you something. And I got out, and it's pretty bad. I got freaking out. I was at the airport, and I got out, and Timo's there waiting for me, and he didn't know I knew, but he brought me like 2 beers to like give me so he could tell me the news. So it was pretty shit. And still now, every time his stuff comes up, I don't know what, like that, it's testament to who he is, because like I met him twice, talked to him a bunch of times, but I think he just touched people a lot, and it's just such a shitty, wasteful way to die, and it's like one of the really shit parts of our sport that actually caused it to happen. So it kind of just like, yeah.
I spoke to a few other fighters too, and I feel the same way. I think it's because someone like Jordan lives and breathes Muay Thai, moving from his homeland to Thailand, just embracing the culture, and that's all he did. And just to see him go out that way, that's directly related to the, darker side of our sport. It's just really sad to see.
Yeah, because like everyone's had to cut weight for start fighting, and like Benny went and lived in Thailand, and Tom went and lived, and it could have been any of these guys. Like he wasn't doing anything particularly crazy. He wasn't doing anything doesn't happen stupidly in the sport all the time. Like, and it's like, it could have just been any of these guys, and it's just luck that it was him. And I think we all made a big hoo-ha afterwards about all the stuff that was going to happen. You still see fighters showing up cross-eyed at lanes. So,
it's like, I mean, when the news came out, and the way that Jordan passed, like, like I remember doing that in Thailand, and like feeling, you chuck in the sauna suit and then run, and like hot part of the day just to sweat it out. And you think, like, hindsight's a funny thing. Like, you think, oh, you're so stupid now, but like, it was just, you just don't know any better. Like at the time, that's the way you cut, like that's the way you're told to cut weight, or you just copy somebody else. And like, I'm so thankful that like, people are starting to wake up, and organizations are starting to really promote like healthier, safer weight cuts. And a lot of trainers are now doing the same thing. They're really pushing for their fighters to like eat well and actually cut weight properly, and majority are still, making sure their fighters are not, taking fights at ridiculously light weights. Like, it's just,
as horrible as it is, it's almost like a wake-up call for people to realize that something like that can happen in sport.
Oh yeah, and to happen to someone like Jordan, like, I was fortunate enough to meet him the 2 times he fought in Rebellion, and like anytime that video that Tom made of his fight, like I tear up, man. Like, he was such an amazing person, and to see him fight, like, it was just in awe. Like, he was just, his style was amazing, and just like, you could just see his personality.
Do you think it's been a wake-up call though, like in Muay Thai in particular?
I think a lot of fighters now are definitely looking at their weight cuts better. They're probably still not doing it right, but I think that also comes down to just people being educated, looking at the right models to cut weight.
Hard to believe though, because there's so many scientists in the Muay Thai community these days. I'm surprised we haven't come up with better systems. I can come up with that.
I'm not saying in terms of
get them off their work at the UN to come and do some scientific advisory stuff. Fuck.
I think with you look at the Roots and Rebellion weigh-ins, and compared to when we first started helping out at the shows. Like, you do see less and less more severely gaunt and completely malnourished fighters before the fight. Like, most of them are pretty. I said the percentage is definitely getting better. Should I say
Nothing like compared to back in your day when you fought, Benny.
Sorry,
it's not like back in your day when you fought. Everyone just did whatever the gym owner said.
You were just told, you were just literally told, all right, cool, you've got to fight at this day. This is the way, this is the weight you got to be at, and you just got to be that weight. And hell, I was I was heavy when I was younger, and I had no idea about proper dieting and just nutrition and so forth. I was just like, cool, just don't eat for a couple of days, and drink lots of water, and sweat. There's obviously a bit more to it than that.
Yep.
Hey, we're going to go round 3 on this 40 minutes as well, Will?
I can't.
We'll finish up here. We'll finish up with 2 more photos. So what's it like having these 2 lovely ladies working with our show?
Great. They're amazing. Jules gets there almost before me and leaves, I think, after the town hall people. Alice is just lovely, but I mean, they're amazing. But I guess our team there's about 15, 20 people that do it on the day, but they're amazing. Jules is probably a bit too hard on herself and stuff. She's probably one of the few people I don't yell at, so I don't know why she's so hard on herself.
And I love Alice being on a door, and the story she tells us, saying people trying to get free tickets, saying, "Hey, I know Sai, my name's on here. Don't you know who I am?" It's just ridiculous.
Sai doesn't know Sai.
Even Sai's mum can't get in the door without, a ticket.
Jules is not going to like that photo.
I'll
perfect.
Perfectly captures it. They're just like, whoa.
That's perfect, guys. Well, guys, thank you for being on. I appreciate your time.
No worries.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with.